I believe we're live.
Hello, welcome to Memphis Light Gas and Water's Power Pivot. Power Pivot is a new online series where we talk to Memphis area small businesses and hear their stories about how they have pivoted to a new normal in this pandemic. Local industry experts join us each show to give us advice in areas such as finance, accounting, marketing, real estate, small business grants, legal issues, health and safety, and energy savings. All of the Zoom attendees, please put your questions in the Q&A section. Those who are watching on Facebook, please put your questions in the comments section. Today, our guests are Joann Massey, who's the Director of Business Diversity and Compliance for the City of Memphis. Welcome, Joann. And then we have John Lawrence, who's with EDGE. He's a Senior Economic Development Specialist. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
And we also have Roderick Woody, who's the Business Services Manager at Workforce Mid-South, Inc. So Joann, let's start with you, with the City of Memphis. Tell us a little bit about what you all are doing with the City of Memphis and how you're focusing on COVID-19 for small businesses.
Well, thank you so much, Gale. And first, let me thank you and your team for inviting us here to talk about the resources and services that we have. It's so important to get the word out to our small businesses about these great resources. We have, since the beginning of the pandemic, under Mayor Strickland's leadership, focused on and committed to helping our small businesses come out whole on the other end of this. None of us knew how long this would last. And so fortunately, City Council has been able to pivot really quickly and to get resources, particularly funding resources, on the table for small businesses. In September of this year, City Council allocated $5 million to go to small businesses who qualify to support them during this pandemic. That money is still available. In fact, we have only deployed about $2 million of that money in the last month and a half. And so we're really hoping that businesses will continue to apply. The website for businesses to apply is www.memphisbdc.org/grants. Everything that they would need is right there, the application, the criteria. If a business was in business 6 months prior to the pandemic, which we noted to start March 1st of 2020, they made at least $30,000 in gross revenue, not net, but gross revenue, up to $3 million. And the business is located within the City of Memphis. The business owner can live in Shelby County, but as long as the business is located in the City of Memphis, then they would qualify and they can apply.
Okay, Joann, so I know with a lot of the COVID dollars, there's a deadline for dollars to be used. What is the deadline for these grants for our small businesses in Memphis?
So just like the other COVID dollars, the federal deadline is December 30th of 2020. So we've set a deadline for applications for December 23rd of 2020, or until all the funds are deployed. Like I said, in the last month and a half, we've already gotten $2 million out. We continue to receive applications via the OBDC grants email. And so we're asking businesses to do not delay, do not wait, go ahead and apply today. And Gale, we're not just asking them to apply and, figure it out on their own. We have a set of business navigators at our Entrepreneurs Network Center set up to help businesses with the application, help them to get their financials in order and things that they have to submit. And so all they need to do is call 901-636-9300 and ask for a business navigator.
Okay, so why do you think it's taking so long? Because these dollars have been available for a while. So why do you think it's taking so long for businesses to apply?
Well, I do believe it's just being in the know, Gale. And again, that's why I'm so happy that you all invited us to be a part of this pivot segment so that we could talk more about the grants. I mean, we don't have commercials on TV. And
Yeah.
of course, we just had an election, so people are distracted. But our business owners are really suffering. We know it, and we want to get
Mhm.
these dollars in their hands. So I think we have it just because people haven't known to apply. But I hope that people will see this. And as you guys are helping get the word out, people will see this and people will continue to apply.
Okay, so thank you so much, Joanne, for sharing that information with us. Now we will move to John with Edge. And John, you all have a need grant, and that grant has been very helpful in our community. So could you explain to us what the need grant is and how you've been able to assist businesses in the Memphis and Shelby County community?
Sure. I think most people know Edge for working with manufacturing relocations, office projects, large scale economic development programs on behalf of the city and county. But we have really spent the last 6 or 8 years trying to transition into more community development work. And we've focused quite a bit in new markets tax credit eligible census tracts, inner city areas with our inner city economic development loan program and also our community builder pilot program. So back in March, early April, when we started seeing the effects of COVID really taking shape, we wanted to be able to deploy funds as quickly as we possibly could in order to do whatever we can to see these businesses in areas where we spent so much time over the last 4 or 5 years. Want to make sure that they survive, hang on, provide that neighborhood serving use to their communities that's so vitally important. So we created the Neighborhood Emergency Economic Development Grant. So unlike our other programs or some of our other programs, this is a pure grant. If your business has seen a 25% reduction in business, if that business had been open for a year prior to COVID, if it's located in or adjacent to a new markets tax credit qualified census tract, which is a mouthful. I mean, essentially that is a federal designation based on median family income, poverty rate, unemployment rate. It's not hard to find an area in Memphis that doesn't qualify. So if you think you might, check with us, please, because we may be able to assist you. But bottom line is we've got up to $10,000 per business to deploy. We've worked with 138 businesses since we started the program in April. Most of that was in the height of the summer when we were doing, we were approving these things by the handful every week. But we still have funds available. We still want to get these funds out. We are still seeing applicants, and those funds are there for a pretty broad range of businesses. I mean, we've worked with auto shops, we've worked with clothes stores, we've worked with hair salons, restaurants. I think if you consider yourself a neighborhood serving business, if you're in a neighborhood that really needs you, we'd really like to talk to you about how we might be able to help you. One piece of our program that is critically important to us is our partnership with the Tennessee Small Business Development Center. As part of our program, we ask that all of our applicants register for free counseling with the Tennessee Small Business Development Center to really help them think through what their stabilization and recovery strategy is. And so that we know our funds are going to businesses that have really thought through what their next step to survival could be. So that is a piece of our puzzle that is a little bit different than some other funds that are out there, but the Tennessee Small Business Development Center so far has been a tremendous partner in this. So, if anybody's interested, if you Google Edge, we'll come up. If you go to growth-engine.org, that's our website, and right on the front page is a link to how you get to our application. Or you can always call us directly. That is often the easiest way to find us. Somebody will call you back if you call 901-341-2100. We have staff that's available to walk you through the process.
Okay, great. So how much did you say you have left now, John?
We have deployed not quite $800,000, so we've got about $200,000 left. We're averaging, a little bit more than $5,000 per award. So there's quite a bit of, capacity left to help a lot of businesses.
Okay, so is there a deadline like some of the other
right now? No, these are EDGE funds that we just moved from other priorities to make this a priority. So the funds were already there. We don't have a federal deadline or anything like that. So right now our intention is to ride it out until COVID goes away or we spend up the money we have.
Oh, great. Great. Okay. So yeah, and right now we don't know how long it's going to be here. So it's great those funds do not have to be exhausted by the end of this year.
No.
So thank you so much for that, John.
Sure.
So now we will talk to Roderick Woody with the Workforce Mid-South. So Roderick, tell us about your organization and what you all are doing to help businesses in our community.
Workforce Mid-South, formerly Workforce Investment Network, we received a grant from the state of Tennessee in the amount of a little over $370,000 for COVID relief. Of that $370,000, we've obligated the majority of those funds, but we still have other funding available through our normal funds from the state of Tennessee. To apply, a company can go to the state's website, and that's www.tn.gov/workforce/employers/training. And that will give you 3 options to apply for either on-the-job training, incumbent worker training, or apprenticeship training. Under the on-the-job training, we can reimburse an employer for the wages of new hires for up to 6 months at a rate of approximately $50,000 per year. Incumbent worker training, we can reimburse an employer for training that's either done internally by a subject matter expert or an outside training provider such as Southwest Tennessee Community College or TCAT, Tennessee Tech. We can reimburse anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 of funding, and that's in consecutive years as well. And with the apprenticeship grants, most apprenticeship programs, or all apprenticeship programs, has 2 components to it. You have an on-the-job training component and instructor-led classroom instruction for the most part. So we can cover the cost of the tuition for that classroom training, or we can reimburse for the on-the-job training component. But those funds are readily available. The company can apply. Once they apply, we'll receive the workforce board will receive a notice. We'll get in contact with that company within 48 hours of receiving the pre-application. And we'll basically walk them through the steps of applying from A to Z. So we'll basically be there until the contract is executed.
Okay, so you mentioned 2 sources of funding. So the first one is directly tied to COVID impact. Okay, so when is the deadline for using those dollars?
The same as Ms. Massey, December the 30th.
Okay. Because okay, so Joann had mentioned December 30th, but their deadline is, I think, the 23rd. So do the monies have to be exhausted, or do you just have to have commitments by those deadlines?
Exhausted.
Joann, does yours have to be exhausted, or do?
Right, exhausted, same here. So that's why we use the 23rd as the application, because it normally takes about 7 to 14 days for an application turnaround. So we'll accept those applications and then work that last week of December to get the funding out if they're eligible. We're hoping to get the money out before. And Gale, I do want to say too, and I didn't say earlier, John's comments reminded me, our grants are 10,000 at a minimum, up to 25,000 for eligible businesses, but no more than 25% of the business's gross revenue. So if their gross revenue is around 30 plus, then they may get 7,000 or 8,000. That's the only way that it would be less than 10 if their gross revenue is less than, between 30 and 40. But if it's over 40, they'll qualify for the full 10.
Wow, that's wonderful. So, down at MLGW, we're going to do all that we can to help you all get the word out about these funds, because it's just such a great need. We've all seen the numbers about the number of small businesses that have gone out of business throughout this country, and the projections are possibly 40% will never come back. Are those the numbers that you all are hearing?
Yes, I read that in Forbes recently. It's about 40% that may not come back.
Okay, and so John, the good thing about your dollars is that you don't have a deadline. These are monies that EDGE is just making available to help businesses in our community to survive during this pandemic time. Are your dollars confined to Memphis, or can it be a business in Memphis or Shelby County? Because I know the cities.
We're strictly confined to the city of Memphis and in new markets tax credit eligible areas within the city of Memphis. So we're a little bit more restricted. I think if you're a business that's a little bit larger than what could qualify for us, or a business that is outside of one of those new markets tax credit areas, you want to get with the city of Memphis as fast as you possibly can. I think Joann Massey's program over there is so beneficial in so many ways, because they can work with larger businesses than we can. Because right now we're capped at revenue of $1 million, where I think your program is $3 million. And the boundaries of eligibility are a little bit more broad than what we have. So I think that if you're a business that's within the city of Memphis, you need to move quick and really try and get that relief, and don't count on our dollars after the first of the year, because we are restricted to the size of business. Truly those small neighbor, now, to a lot of people, $1 million in revenue is a lot of money, but to most businesses, that is not a really large business. And so our funds are reserved to those much smaller businesses.
Okay, and when you could you give me an example again of some of the businesses that you've been touching and helping?
Sure, I think out there are a number of restaurants that have come through, and we've talked to a lot of different restaurants, but it's not hard for a restaurant to have, while the owner doesn't take home a lot of money, it's not hard for them to have revenues of over $1 million a year. But we've worked with a number of restaurants. We've worked with some auto shops, some neighborhood level repair shops. We've also done, I can't tell you how many hair salons we've done. Who knew there was that many people doing hair out there? we have worked with a lot of nail and hair salons. Those types of businesses, they fit our program really well.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a great need there, and I'm sure they're greatly appreciated. And I'm gonna tell you, a lot of females are probably greatly appreciative to you all helping them out.
Well, the dynamic is really interesting, because a lot of salons have to meet such stringent health and safety protocols. So just setting up their shops where they can do business has been an expense, and we've been able to assist with that so they can get open. Some of those businesses had people waiting, in a line at the door, ready to get right back in. Others are still struggling because their clientele are both cost and safety conscious, and have been hesitant to get back to business. So, what businesses are going through out there right now, it's really tough to put your finger on, because in some case you think you have it figured out, then you realize that the dynamic of what their customer is going through is so much different than what you thought.
Okay, so Roderick, let me ask you, Are there boundaries? Are your funds just for businesses in Memphis or the Shelby County? Or are there limitations on where a business can be located for your dollars?
For our dollars, the employee would have to reside in Shelby County, Tipton County, Fayette County, or Lauderdale County.
Oh, okay. So how do you have an idea how many people you all have helped so far during the pandemic time?
During the pandemic, we have 19 applications that we've obligated funds to. We had about 80 employees to apply for the funding. Some we're still working with. We're going to try to assist them under our other source of funding, and others, either they didn't have the upfront funds to qualify for the grant. And then, like I said, some of the others we're still trying to work out. It's a reimbursement grant. So
so that's a little bit more challenging. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So some of the smaller employers didn't have the upfront money to pay for the training, whether that's a new hire or their current workforce.
Wow. Yeah, so I can imagine that. I mean, with so many companies being shut down for 6 to 8 months, with no income or very limited income, I would imagine there would be a major challenge for them. So Joann, could you tell us what kind of businesses mostly that the city of Memphis has helped with your COVID dollars?
Yeah, Gale, thank you so much. So actually, I know John mentioned that we accept the gross revenue up to $3 million, but as I mentioned, it is as low as $30,000.
Okay.
So we help larger businesses. We've seen a lot of restaurants that have had, 1 to 2 million, but we help home-based businesses too. So if you have, so if you have a home-based business and you have a business license and you have a 2019 tax return that shows your Schedule C, if it's your personal tax return, or if you have a business tax return that shows that gross revenue, then we'll accept you. There's no restrictions on the type of business. It's a professional services. We've had T-shirt printing from home. We've had daycares. We've had a lot of beauty and barber salon owners as well. We have had consultants, dentist office. We had a stylist who's in the Broad Avenue area. She has a location there. We've helped her already. So any type of business. What's really important, and this is what we tell our business owners, some people are out here and they have like a side hustle. So they have a full-time job, but they have a side hustle, but they don't have a business license. If they don't have a business license, we can't help them. They must have a business license unless they are a professional, by which the state of Tennessee does not require them to have a business license. And that's like our engineers, our doctors, dentists, those that already have some other kind of state license. But we have helped in the 2 months or month and a half that we've had this program, we've had 181 businesses to receive actual checks from our office. And like I said, we're at about $2 million now, but we still have roughly a little under $3 million to go. So to John's point, we would want you to start with us so that we can get the money out the door. And then next year, and we hope that we're on the other side of this pandemic and things are okay. But next year, if there's still funding available through EDGE, they can help you. And then, of course, I didn't mention the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance. We have microloan programs that are still ongoing. One that we started at the beginning of the EDGE of the COVID. And we have that still ongoing. And then our plan is to use some HUD funding in partnership with the Housing and Community Development Office to launch what we're calling resiliency. So the current program we have is called stabilization, where we're trying to stabilize our businesses during this pandemic. And then afterwards, we'll be using some CBDG funding and HUD funding to launch our Small Business Resiliency Fund. It's about $500,000. We're hoping to get a match, and those will be loans, and they'll run up to $20,000 for businesses. But we're trying to use this emergency funding that we have now and exhaust that since we have a deadline.
Okay, so I do have a question. So Roderick and Joann, you all have deadlines in December. If those dollars are not committed by the end of December, if they're not spent, what happens to those dollars?
Oh, the worst thing that could ever happen, Gale, they go back to the federal government. And
Right.
so I probably answer for Roderick, but that's what happens with grant funds.
Same thing on our end. It goes back to the state of Tennessee.
So let me ask you all, do you think that there's a possibility that new COVID dollars will be coming available next year, particularly with the new surges and with the projection that we may be going through this pandemic possibly through next summer? Is there a possibility that we may have new dollars available, or dollars that are unspent? Deadlines will be extended to use those dollars.
So Gale, I'm in talks with some of my counterparts with the Small Business Administration and some other folks at the federal level about if there might be some additional dollars. But here with the city of Memphis, we are basically operating by the deadlines that we have been given and trying to make sure and focus on this $5 million that we have at hand. There's a possibility that our state, our federal legislators could go in and extend that December 30th deadline, but it's so unlikely with so much going on in the medical crises or the health crises that our nation is in. So we have to operate as if that deadline is hard and will not be extended. But we do hope that on the other end of this, with small business emergency support, that there will be some either extension of the funding that's been made available and or additional funding.
Okay, so
if we don't have if we have a vaccine as early as a month from now, that's another month in, and then and that's best case scenario, and then first responders get it, and it trickles on down, but the masses don't get it until April.
Yeah.
Then we're more than a year into this thing, and getting through 4 or 5 months of the first of next year is going to be really, really tough on so many of our businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
If people aren't comfortable getting out, if we're still to some degree locked down and people aren't being able to get to work and have disposable income to go spend it with our locally owned businesses, we've got quite a hump to get over, even if the best case scenario is out there.
Yeah, and as we speak of some of the small businesses like restaurants, some of them are doing an excellent job with having outdoor eating, but as it gets colder and really, really cold, that just may not work for some people. I do know one restaurant, the one that's out at Shelby Farms, they have put up glass. It's still outside, but they put glass up. They've done an excellent job with the outdoor dining. They have heaters in there. And so I'm just hoping that other businesses will be able to take advantage of some of these dollars that's out there so they can make their outdoor dining, warmer and more attractive for people to want to go out in the cold, who just want to get out and just to eat because of the, some people, this COVID, it's just, people are very tired right now, and that's why our numbers are going up. I just looked at our numbers today. From yesterday, we have almost 700 new cases, and, people are tired, but anyway, I'm just hoping that with the funds that you all have available and other organizations that have available for businesses that they can take advantage of those dollars to help make their businesses safe, and people will want to, just to support the businesses. So, but anyway, we don't.
It's so important to our economy,
It
the
is.
hospitality industry. And so we hear about it quite a bit, and it's so visible. So we see it on the news, we see the interviews, but there's so many other businesses layered on top of that, daycare centers. To think of, this is the time of year where in the logistics industry, which really runs our economy, you've got family members that are going to load airplanes and trucks in the middle of the night. They need to leave their kids somewhere. And so how do daycare centers operate and survive in this? And then you've got other daycare centers that cater to different markets that right now aren't seeing the kids come back because their parents don't think it's safe. But for the longevity of our economy, all of these small neighborhood serving businesses are so critically important, and getting them any kind of help we possibly can.
And people, and you touching on the daycare, there's people are touched in so many ways that some people don't even think about.
Right.
With this pandemic, it's just a ripple effect throughout our community, throughout our country.
Gale, let me add that one thing we had mentioned here is about even the capacity requirements or restrictions that businesses have. So even if they're open, even if the restaurants are open, they can only have so many people in the restaurants anyway. So it's just not the way that it used to be. My husband and I, we love Central Barbecue, and the kids were out doing some things, at home. They were having a little get together at home. And so we decided to go out for dinner. We went to Central Barbecue, and the tables were all spread out, and they could only have about 25 people in, the big restaurant downtown by the National Civil Rights Museum. So it's about the capacity limitations. And so that affects the business's potential revenue. And that's what we're seeing a lot of when businesses are answering the impact questions in our application that we require. They're saying, I'm restricted because of the capacity restrictions, because of the hours that I can be open and the things that we can't do. And let me just add, I mentioned about the types of businesses. We also give grants to entertainers. So those entertainers that perform on Bill Street, they are a business themselves. And if they can produce, which they do, have business licenses or some kind of professional license, we're giving grants to them too. They're sole proprietors, but they're a business. They have tax returns that show self-employment. So we're providing grants to them as well.
That is so wonderful, Joann, and it's great information for people to know, because so many people don't know. But like back to the restaurants, it touches so many people. Before we could even go to the restaurants, and now that you have the limited capacity, and I do go to restaurants, I'm very cautious of the ones that I go to and making sure they're safe and outdoors. But before that, I did a lot of picking up dinner or lunch just to help with the economy. And because if I was at work every day, I'm telecommuting, I would be spending a whole lot more money. So I try to make sure that I'm touching these restaurants, because when you touch the restaurants, you're touching employees and you're touching families. And we have to, in any way that we can, give back and help people in our community. And so it is just so critical that, if you can't go in, just please, just call in, place your order, pick it up. And also, that's an easy one kind of, but there are so many other businesses that we need to try to find ways to help, because these are people who live in our community, and they have families, they have car notes, they have house notes, and it just affects our entire community and economy here when people lose their jobs. So I do have one question right now. So the question is, so if you are an independent consultant, meaning 2 side hustles, no business license, but you help people don't qualify, health and wellness business.
No, you have to have a business license. You have to have been established for at least 6 months prior. And I mean, we will evaluate that, what type of business you are. Out of the 181 that we approved, Gale, we probably got 400 applications, but you know, they were incomplete. They didn't provide all the information. They didn't have their documentation. One thing that I want your listeners and, you know, those that are participating in this call to know, that these are federal funds. So not only is the city of Memphis subject to audits and subject to the compliance of the utilization of these funds, but each and every business owner or individual that receives these funds are. In fact, you're subject to an audit up to 3 years. So compliance is my area of expertise. And I will tell you, this is not something that you want to dabble in fraudulently, if you know what I mean. There have been many, many news stories that have already come out. And let me tell you, the federal government is very intentional about weeding out those that are not actually eligible or doing something that they shouldn't be doing in this. So I only say that to say, if you don't meet the criteria, I can guarantee you that our office will not approve your application. We understand that everyone's hurting, but what I do, and I think you had them on the call last time, Gale, the Black Business Association, for our barbers and beauty salon folks who are employees of that, they have a grant that they are giving through the CARES Act. It's about $300, but you can get that money. There are other funds, other resources if you don't qualify for this one.
Okay, so we're running out of time now. So I would like each one of you all to provide some closing remarks for our viewers and listeners. What is it that you would really like for them to know about your business, your organization, and what they need to know to be able to, you know, to apply?
You mentioned capacity. You mentioned capacity earlier of a lot of these restaurants and businesses. I hope people realize that there's a lot of businesses out there that are doing okay. They're not far from making it, but with a little bit more business, a little bit of assistance, and that's the role I think we're playing with these grant programs. We're helping them supplement their rent for 2 or 3 months. We're helping them keep their inventory up when right now it's hard for them to reinvest. We're helping them keep the lights on. Right now, there are very few of our businesses that are taking any money home. And so, you know, if you're one of those businesses that's on the edge like that, please look into the Edge Need Grant. We're not a lot. We're not going to get you by long, but we'll get you a little bit for a minute to kind of supplement some of those types of expenses to keep you alive for 2 or 3 months till hopefully we turn the corner on this thing.
Okay, so John, could you give the contact information, how you all can be reached?
Absolutely. 901-341-2100. It'll ring right here in our office, and there's a button you push to get to the Need Grant.
And it's the Need Grant. Thank you so very much, John. Roderick? Roderick?
As employers are start back hiring, the one piece that we really didn't touch on, or I didn't touch on, is our ability to assist with recruiting. We operate off of a system called jobsfortn.gov. That's the state of Tennessee job database. We can post positions for employers. We can do the pre-screening. We can even allow them to come into one of our career centers to conduct interviews for any open positions that they have available. We have 3 career centers that's within the city limits of Memphis. We have a location at Walnut Grove, Hickory Hill, and Angeles, which is right off of Poplar. And we're also expanding our services by what we call access points. So access points will allow us to maybe set up to provide career center services at maybe the mall, at a community center, at a church or a library. So those are some of the things we're bringing our services out to the people. And that includes our everyday citizens as well as employers.
Great. Thank you so very much, Roderick. And Joann, what are your closing remarks that you have for our viewers and listeners?
Okay, well, thank you again, Gail, to you and your team. You're always fantastic with making sure that we are all in the know in this community. Mayor Strickland continues to be committed to supporting small businesses. We have many resources besides the grants, but it is important, again, that we get these funds out of the door and we don't have to send them back. These funds, as my colleague John mentioned earlier, they're a lifeline for businesses. So if you're thinking of closing your doors and you can't pay your employees and you're having to try to lay off people, this is the program that you should make sure that you apply for. The website again is www.memphisbdc.org. And we also have a partnership with TSBDC. They're co-located in our Entrepreneurs Network Center and a part of our Business Navigator hotline that we have. But you can call the Business Navigator hotline at 901-636-9300 for any questions. Please, please apply. Don't make us have to send this money back.
No, we do not need to send any monies back. And we are working sure at Memphis Light, Gas and Water that all of the millions of dollars that are out there in the community for utility assistance, we don't want to send any of that money back. We want everyone to apply. It's free. They don't have to pay it back. And the same with the dollars that you all have available. And John, I'm just grateful that the EDGE doesn't have to have their money spent by the end of December. Right. And their monies will be available going on into the new year. And I want to thank each of you all for taking time to come out and share your valuable information. It is such a wealth of information, and these dollars are out there for people in our community to use, and they don't have to pay them back. They just have to be impacted. And with EDGE, you don't really have to be impacted. And with Roderick, y'all have another program that way you don't have to be impacted by COVID. But dollars are out there to help people in our community to pivot into hopefully our old normal at some point. So I want to thank each of you, and thank our viewers and listeners for watching and listening to Power Pivot. We look forward to the next section where we will be talking to other local businesses and to discuss ways to help small businesses pivot during this pandemic. Thank you so very much, each of you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Are we out? Are we done? We're done? Terica?
Dawn will need to end the webinar.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.